Hello everyone, Hira here. Now we are going to listen to podcast news which includes important national, international and business, economy, news. While walking in the morning or evening, while cooking, cycling or during free time you can listen. It will enhance your learning and understanding of various accents and pronunciations. Listening improves the quality of communication and comprehension. Before going ahead, I would like to welcome you all to the virtual school, a new way of learning and teaching, with the vision of Let's Grow Together. Our mission is to learn how to learn and teach how to teach. So stay tuned. And here we go. 21st July 2021. Important national news. Pegasus spyware rocks Parliament. Lok Sabha adjourned for the day amid repeated disruptions. Rajya Sabha discusses COVID-19 situation. Demanding answers. Congress workers protesting outside the BJP headquarters in New Delhi on Tuesday. Sandeep Saxena. Special Correspondent, New Delhi. The Pegasus snooping controversy led to multiple disruptions in the Lok Sabha on Tuesday before the House was adjourned for the day. In what seemed to be a different strategy by the opposition parties for the two houses, proceedings in the lower house got washed out while the Rajya Sabha discussed the COVID-19 situation after a couple of hours of disruptions in the morning. The government on its own had moved for a discussion on COVID-19 after it was discussed in the Business Advisory Committee, BAC. We didn't want to give them a chance to say the opposition doesn't even want to discuss the pandemic. But the government will find itself cornered in the Lok Sabha. On July 22, farmers have planned some action outside the House and we will raise their voices inside the House, a senior Congress leader told The Hindu. Multiple notices. With multiple notices from Lok Sabha members, such as Manish Tewari, Manikam Tagore and Gaurav Gogoi, for the suspension of routine business to discuss the snooping controversy, the opposition made its intentions clear on the second day of the monsoon session. Trinamool Congress leaders too had given an adjournment notice after the name of the party's Lok Sabha member Abhishek Banerjee, who is also the nephew of West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, figured in the list of potential targets for hacking. As soon as the Lok Sabha proceedings started at 11 am, the Congress and the Trinamool started raising slogans and showed placards targeting the government. While some placards showed former Congress chief Rahul Gandhi being in the list of targets, another was about Mr. Banerjee. One of the placards read that while people were suffering from unemployment, the government was busy with jasusi, spying. The proceedings lasted for 5 minutes before the House was adjourned until 2 p.m. When it reconvened, similar scenes were witnessed, prompting the chair to adjourn it for an hour. After the House assembled at 3 p.m., the opposition members again started raising slogans, and the chair adjourned it for the day. 5 opposition parties skip PMO briefing. Special Correspondent, New Delhi. The Congress, the Aam Aadmi Party, the RJD, the CPI and the CPI-M, on Tuesday skipped the briefing for floor leaders of Parliament by Union Health Secretary Rajesh Bhushan, organized by the Prime Minister's office, on the COVID-19 situation. Opposition leaders met in the morning in the office of Leader of Opposition in the Rajya Sabha Mallikarjun Kharge to discuss the issue. The meeting was held to primarily organize a coordinated strategy. Snooping in Karnataka before regime change. Cong. JD.S. members possible targets. Former CM Siddaramaiah. Special Correspondent, Bangalore, New Delhi. During the political turmoil in Karnataka in 2019, which ended in the collapse of the Janata Dal, secular, Congress government and the BJP coming to power, The phone numbers of key leaders of the coalition parties and their associates were selected as possible targets for surveillance, The Wire reported on Tuesday, as part of the global investigation, the Pegasus Project. The phone numbers of then Deputy Chief Minister G. Parameswar, personal secretaries of then Chief Minister H.D. Kumaraswamy and former Chief Minister Siddaramaiah, and a security personnel of former Prime Minister H.D. Deve Gowda were selected as possible targets, according to The Wire's review of records of numbers that were of interest to the Indian client of Israel's NSO group. Since the phones have not been forensically analyzed, it is not conclusively proven that they were compromised with the Pegasus spyware, the report said. The phone numbers were selected, as per the report, around the time when 17 MLAs from the Congress and the JDS resigned from the assembly and left the party, leading to the toppling of the government. SC Raps Kerala Gov. 4. Sorry State of Affairs. Krishnadas Rajagopal, New Delhi. The Supreme Court on Tuesday said the Kerala government's choice to buckle under pressure from traders to open up shops for Bakrid in high COVID-19 infection areas showed a sorry state of affairs and failure to protect the fundamental right to life and health. To give in to pressure groups so that the citizenry of India is laid bare to a nationwide pandemic discloses a sorry state of affairs, the court said. Two-thirds of Indians have antibodies, shows ICMR survey. Special Correspondent, New Delhi. Two-thirds of the population aged above 6 have antibodies against SARS-CoV-2, according to data released on Tuesday from a sero survey conducted by the Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR, in June and July. Nearly 40 crore people, or a third of the population, are still vulnerable to the COVID-19 infection, the study showed. Presenting the results of the 4th National COVID-19 Sero Survey, ICMR Director General Balram Bhargava said though the survey offered a ray of hope, there was no room for complacency. The survey found that more than half of the children, 6 to 17 years, were seropositive while seroprevalence was similar in rural and urban areas. 85% of healthcare workers had antibodies, while 1/10 of them were unvaccinated, he said. The survey covered 28,975 adults and children aged 6 to 17 years, and 7,252 healthcare workers. It was conducted in the 70 districts across 21 states where the 3 earlier rounds were done. Future waves possibility. This national sero survey is not a substitute for local, state district variations. State heterogeneity indicates the possibility of future waves of infection. We strongly suggest that societal, public, religious and political congregations be avoided, non-essential travel be discouraged and travel should be undertaken only if fully vaccinated, the ICMR chief said. No deaths due to lack of oxygen reported. Minister lists steps taken by centre to enhance supplies during second wave. Express delivery, special trains were used to send oxygen tankers across the country in recent months. V. Raju. Special Correspondent, New Delhi. No deaths due to the lack of oxygen have been specifically reported by states and union territories, the Health Ministry said in the Rajya Sabha on Tuesday in response to a question on the acute shortage of oxygen during the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. Bharti Praveen Pawar, Minister of State, Health and Family Welfare, in her response noted that the central government had supported the states and undertaken a series of actions including provisioning medical oxygen and other consumables to ensure clinical care of COVID-19 patients. The minister also noted that the supply of medical oxygen to hospitals is determined by contractual arrangements between the hospital concerned and the medical oxygen supplier. Unprecedented surge. However, due to the unprecedented surge in demand of medical oxygen during the second wave, the demand in the country peaked to nearly 9,000 metric ton as compared to 3,095 metric ton during the first wave. The central government had to step in to facilitate equitable distribution to the states, she said. The minister said the center enhanced liquid medical oxygen (LMO) production from 5,700 metric ton in August 2020 to 9,690 metric ton in May 2021. Of the 1,222 PSA, pressure swing adsorption, oxygen generation plants sanctioned, 237 have been commissioned till 15 July 2021, she added. Court acquits accused in first verdict in Delhi riots case. Prosecution miserably failed to prove its case. Staff reporter, New Delhi. In the first judgment on the Northeast Delhi riots, a local court on Tuesday acquitted a man accused of being part of unlawful assembly, dacoity and rioting, noting, "The prosecution has miserably failed to prove its case, forget about beyond reasonable doubts." Additional Sessions Judge Amitabh Rawat said a perusal of the testimonies and evidence produced by the prosecution in connection with the case showed glaring inconsistencies in the testimony of the prosecution witnesses. Inconsistent testimonies. All the major witnesses are at variance with each other on material terms impacting the prosecution version. There is no testimony worth its salt which connects the accused to the offense in question, the judge said while acquitting Suresh alias Bhatura in the case. According to the police, Mr. Suresh, along with a huge crowd of rioters carrying iron rods and sticks, allegedly broke open the lock of a shop on the main Babrapur road and looted the premises on the evening of February 25 last year. The FIR was lodged on a written complaint by Asif, who stated that he saw 15 to 20 rioters breaking into his shop. The details of the items looted from the shop were also mentioned in the complaint. The shop is owned by Bhagat Singh and given on rent to Mr. Asif. The court noted that there is no denial that an unlawful assembly gathered outside the shop, ransacked it and committed robbery. However, the crucial question is the identification of the accused, Mr. Suresh, and his role in the present offense of rioting by the unlawful assembly, the court said. The court also pointed out that Mr. Asif was not an eyewitness to the incident of rioting. NGT raps Haryana over failure to maintain green norms. Tribunal forms panel, directs Chief Secretary to take steps against erring officers. Staff reporter, New Delhi. Stating that there appeared to be serious lapses on part of the Haryana government in performing constitutional obligation of providing a clean environment, the National Green Tribunal, NGT, has observed that the failure of the administration and neglect of responsibility is enough for destruction. The observations came when a bench headed by NGT chairperson Justice Adarsh Kumar Goyal was hearing a plea which alleged that authorities had failed to maintain environmental norms in handling the Bandhavri landfill site in Gurugram. The tribunal constituted a three-member committee comprising officials of the Central Pollution Control Board, State Pollution Control Board and the Gurugram District Magistrate. Remedial measures. We are of the view that effective remedial measures, including effective monitoring mechanism, is required in view of seriousness of the situation. A welfare state can hardly be oblivious to its constitutional obligation to the citizens for protection of public health, particularly when failure to prevent outbreak of diseases results in mass destruction of human lives, the bench observed. Observing that effectiveness of monitoring mechanisms need to be looked into, the NGT said, "We hope such failure will be remedied if the state has any concern for safety of its citizens and the rule of law. The erring officers need to be made accountable for such continuing failure." The Green Panel was hearing a plea moved by petitioner Poonam Yadav, who contended that steps taken in a waste management project, undertaken in 2017, was inadequate and the waste was being burnt, resulting in air pollution, which resulted in adverse effects on residents as well as flora and fauna at the Asola Bhatti Wildlife Sanctuary. The bench has also directed the Haryana Chief Secretary to take steps against erring officers for failure to remedy the situation. Illegal liquor vends. Meanwhile, the Delhi Forest Department has written to the Haryana administration, asking it to identify and act against liquor vends operating illegally in the eco-sensitive zone near the Asola Bhatti Wildlife Sanctuary. An official said smugglers bring down small portions of the sanctuary's boundary wall and use a shortcut to deliver liquor from Haryana to Delhi on foot or on motorbikes. Lingayat seers rally behind Yediyurappa. They warn of holding a meet to decide action if he is removed from CM's post. In solidarity, over 20 seers met Chief Minister B.S. Yediyurappa at his official residence. Special arrangement. Karnataka Bureau Bangalore Belgavi. Amid intense speculation about a possible leadership change in Karnataka and a day after Veershaiva Mahasabha heads expressed support for Chief Minister B.S. Yediyurappa, Lingayat Veershaiva seers came out in the open to back the Chief Minister and warned that they would hold a meeting to decide their future course of action if he is removed from the top post. While Shivamurthy Muruga Swami from the Muruga Mutt held a press conference along with about 20 seers from several other mutts in Chitradurga to express solidarity with Mr. Yediyurappa, another set of over 20 seers, led by Dingeleshwara seer, met the Chief Minister at his official residence to demonstrate their backing. Prasanna Renuka Virasomeshwar Shivchaya Swami of Rambapuri Pitha has also expressed his support for the veteran leader. The delegation of seers that met the Chief Minister warned that a group of about 500 seers would come together to hold a meeting and chalk out the next course of action if the BJP High Command went ahead with the reported plans to replace Mr. Yediyurappa. The Muruga Mutt seer said at Chitradurga, "We are worried about reports that the BJP is planning to unseat Yediyurappa. We are here to express our moral support to the Chief Minister. If there are internal problems in the BJP, the party leadership should resolve them immediately." He argued that while Mr. Yediyurappa may belong to the Lingayat caste and religion, he was a leader for all. He is a leader who treats everyone equally. He has worked for the development of all castes and religions equally, the seer said, at a press conference at his mutt. Meanwhile, speculation about a change in leadership has caused concern among ministers who came from other parties to help the BJP form the government in the state in 2019. It is learned that these ministers met in Bangalore on Monday night. The ministers are learned to have decided to maintain a united front. SC annals parts of Co-op amendment verdict significant amid states' fears over Union Ministry of Cooperation. Krishnadas Rajagopal, New Delhi. In a major boost for federalism, the Supreme Court on Tuesday struck down parts of a constitution amendment which shrank the exclusive authority of states over its cooperative societies. Part IXB, introduced in the Constitution through the 97th Amendment of 2012, dictated the terms for running cooperative societies. The provisions in the amendment, passed by Parliament without getting them ratified by state legislatures as required by the Constitution, went to the extent of determining the number of directors a society should have or their length of tenure and even the necessary expertise. In a majority judgment authored by Justice Nariman, the court held that cooperative societies come under the exclusive legislative power of state legislatures. The judgment may be significant in the background of fears voiced by the states whether the new Central Ministry of Cooperation would disempower them. The SC, however, said the centre had power over multi-state cooperative societies. Part 9b, which consists of Articles 243ZH to 243ZT, has significantly and substantially impacted state legislatures' exclusive legislative power over its cooperative sector under Entry 32 of the state list. In fact, the court pointed out how Article 243ZI makes it clear that a state may only make law on the incorporation, regulation and winding up of a society subject to the provisions of Part IXB of the 97th Constitution Amendment. There can be no doubt that our Constitution has been described as quasi-federal in that, so far as legislative powers are concerned, though there is a tilt in favor of the centre vis-à-vis the states given the federal supremacy principle outlined herein above, yet within their own sphere, the states have exclusive power to legislate on topics reserved exclusively to them, Justice Nariman wrote in his 89-page majority opinion shared with Justice B.R. Gavai. The 97th Amendment, which inserts the chapter dealing with cooperative societies, has not been so ratified by the states, though an amendment of the Constitution is the exercise of constituent power which differs from ordinary legislative power. Such constituent power does not convert Parliament into an original constituent assembly. Parliament, being the dunny of a limited power, may only exercise such power in accordance with both the procedural and substantive limitations contained in the Constitution of India, Justice Nariman observed. However, the court did not strike down the portions of Part IXB of the amendment concerning multi-state cooperative societies, due to the lack of ratification. When it comes to multi-state cooperative societies, MSCS, with objects not confined to one state, the legislative power would be that of the Union of India, which is contained in Entry 44 List I, Union List. It is declared that Part IXB of the Constitution is operative only insofar as it concerns multi-state cooperative societies both within the various states and in the Union territories, Justice Nariman said. In his dissent, Justice K. M. Joseph said the doctrine of severability would not operate to distinguish between single-state cooperatives and MSCS. The judge said the entire Part IXB should be struck down on the ground of absence of ratification. Anthony Blinken may visit India, very soon, dates still being finalized, says official. Antony Blinken. Suhasini Haidar, New Delhi. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is expected to make his first visit to India very soon, sources said, indicating that planning for the visit is underway for a meeting as early as next week. The dates are still being finalized, an official told The Hindu, confirming the visit, while another official said meetings were being scheduled in New Delhi at the end of July. Mr. Blinken's visit is expected to prepare the way for the Quad Summit and bilateral meetings between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Joseph Biden due to be held in Washington later this year, and is also expected to discuss the emerging situation in Afghanistan, including Taliban advances after the US troop pullout, with Indian officials. Mr. Blinken's proposed visit, which is yet to be announced, could coincide with the 3-day visit of Afghanistan Army Chief Lieutenant General Wali Muhammad Ahmadzai to Delhi. India and the US have a wide array of bilateral relations to discuss, and Mr. Biden has made it clear that the America's Indo-Pacific strategy that includes India is an area of importance, particularly given increasing tensions between the US and China. India and the US have pending talks on a free trade agreement, and India's demand for a restoration of its GSP status for exports, rescinded by the previous Trump administration, and the two sides will discuss improving economic, defense, energy cooperation, and cooperation on countering COVID-19. The U.S.'s Quad initiative to produce 1 billion vaccines is based on Indian production. Pegasus, OPNA. Seeks independent probe. Parties seek inquiry into alleged use of software for spying on ministers, politicians and journalists. Seeking accountability, a Congress worker being detained by security personnel while taking part in a demonstration against the alleged surveillance operation using Pegasus spyware. AFP. Special Correspondent, New Delhi. Opposition parties on Tuesday again sought an independent investigation into the alleged use of Pegasus software for spying on ministers, politicians and journalists, and answers from the central government. The Congress tweeted, "We unequivocally demand the resignation of the Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah. Upholding our democratic and constitutional values and principles is paramount for the safety and security of all our citizens. We cannot stress this enough. A foreign spyware meant only for governments has hacked into our citizens' phones. There must be accountability." Another tweet said, "If true, Modi gov's use of the Pegasus spyware is nothing short of a total abdication of protecting national security. Our national institutions have been infiltrated. The nation's safety has been jeopardized." Yet another tweet said, "Free and fair elections are the foundations of our vibrant democracy, and Modi gov has employed all means available to subvert them. Money power and muscle power notwithstanding, BJP has resorted to the help of foreign entities to destroy our sovereignty. The Prime Minister should also be under the purview of investigation," the Congress added. CPI-M's tweet. The CPI-M's Twitter handle said, "The Modi gov is using foreign military-grade spyware to hack into its own journalists, opposition leaders and constitutional authorities. It is effectively waging a war on our democracy and constitution." Samajwadi Party's Akhilesh Yadav said on Twitter that listening to people's personal talk by spying on the phone was a gross violation of the right to privacy. If the Bharatiya Janata Party was getting it done, then it was punishable, and if the BJP government said that it was not aware of it, then it was its failure on the issue of national security. Serious matter. Bahujan Samaj Party Supremo Mayawati tweeted that the dirty game of espionage and blackmail was not a new thing but breaching the privacy using very expensive equipment, spying on ministers, opposition leaders, officials and journalists, etc. was a very serious matter. The centre's clarifications, refutations and arguments had failed to convince the people. In the interest of the nation and the government, an independent and impartial investigation should be conducted at the earliest so that responsibility could be fixed, she said. The Press Club of India also expressed deep concern over the latest Snoopgate expose in which Pegasus spyware was reportedly used to snoop on Indian journalists, activists, ministers, parliamentarians and members of judiciary. In 2019, IT House panel unsuccessfully tried to discuss Pegasus breach, 121 people affected by spyware then. Shashi Tharoor. Shobhana K. Nair, New Delhi. In 2019, during a probe by the Standing Committee on Information Technology headed by Congress leader Shashi Tharoor, officials of the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, MEITY, according to sources, told the panel that 121 people were affected by the Pegasus spyware. The Kudankulam nuclear plant too had reported a cyber breach. The officials from the Department of Atomic Energy and the Kudankulam nuclear plant, the sources said, stated that the malware infection was only found in the administrative side of the plant's operations. Officials of both MEITY and the Ministry of Home Affairs though neither confirmed nor denied the involvement of the government in snooping using the Pegasus spyware, which is sold by the Israeli technology firm NSO Group. The government also did not clarify who these 121 individuals were or if they were contacted for a detailed probe into the issue. On 20 November 2019, when the Standing Committee wanted to discuss the issue, the BJP members vehemently opposed it. They argued that it was illegal and beyond the purview of the panel to discuss the issue. The discussion could begin only after the agenda was voted down upon. Only 25 of the panel's 31 members attended the meeting, of which 12 voted against initiating a meeting, while 12 voted in favor. The final deciding vote was cast by Mr. Tharoor. Panel meets 17 persons. In a subsequent meeting, the panel met 17 persons, who had come together under a common platform, Pegasus targeted persons. They included human rights activist Bela Bhatia, Marxist Dalit author Anand Teltumbde, Jagdalpur Legal Aid Group member Shalini Gera, Chhattisgarh-based civil rights activist Alok Shukla and human rights activist Jagdish Meshram. The panel did not submit any report on the consultations. Judicial investigation. Speaking to The Hindu, Mr. Tharoor refused to comment on the deliberations. Only governments have Pegasus. If our government has used it, then it is certainly illegal. The exceptions of national security and terrorism does not apply to Rahul Gandhi or Prashant Kishore. And if it is not our government's work, then it is even more serious since it is a breach of our national security, he stated. There had to be a judicial investigation into it, he added. In a tweet, he said, if it turns out that it's our gov and it's authorized to do it, GOI needs to give an explanation as the law only permits interception of communication for issues of national security, terrorism, otherwise, it's illegal. Essential for Gov to cooperate in a probe. US condemns extrajudicial surveillance of journalists. Shriram Lakshman. The Biden administration has condemned the harassment and extrajudicial surveillance of journalists and others in reaction to reports published by a consortium of news websites that Israeli company NSO Group's spyware, Pegasus, was used for illegal hacking and surveillance of individuals, including in India. The United States condemns the harassment or extrajudicial surveillance of journalists, human rights activists, or other perceived regime critics, a White House spokesperson said via email to The Hindu in response to a question on what US President Joe Biden's position on the issue was. Only on Monday US President Joe Biden had said that China and Russia were protecting and even accommodating cyber hackers and their hacking. The news reports on Pegasus say that in addition to actually or potentially targeting journalists, leaders of the opposition in India, and others, a database of phone numbers that allegedly belonged to the NSO group contained the numbers of 2 U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, officials in New Delhi and employees of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Tuesday's statement from the White House spokesperson stopped short of naming Israel, where NSO Group is based. Just as states have the duty to protect human rights, businesses have a responsibility to respect human rights, including by ensuring that their products or services are not being used by end users to abuse fundamental freedoms, the spokesperson said. Thank you. International news. Rockets target Kabul Presidential Palace. IS claims responsibility for the attack. President Ghani says Taliban have no intention for peace. Charge remains. Security personnel inspecting a damaged vehicle which fired the rockets in Kabul on Tuesday. AP Rahmat Gul. Associated Press Kabul. At least 3 rockets hit near the presidential palace on Tuesday shortly before Afghan President Ashraf Ghani was to give an address to mark the major Muslim holiday of Eid al-Adha. There were no injuries and the rockets landed outside the heavily fortified palace grounds, said Mirwais Stanikzai, spokesman for the Interior Minister. The Islamic State group claimed responsibility for the attack on its Amaq news channel. Police quickly fanned out across the area. One car that was parked on a nearby street was completely destroyed. The police said that it had been used as a launching pad for the rockets. The palace is located in the middle of a so-called green zone that is fortified with giant cement blast walls and barbed wire, and streets near the palace have long been closed off. The barrage came as the US and NATO complete their final withdrawal from Afghanistan. Many Afghans are worried whether their war-ravaged country will fall deeper into chaos and violence as foreign forces withdraw and the Taliban gain more territory on the ground, having captured several districts and key border crossings with neighboring countries over the past weeks. The withdrawal is more than 95% complete and the final US soldier will be gone by August 31st, President Joe Biden said in an address earlier this month. This ID has been named after Afghan forces to honor their sacrifices and courage, especially in the last 3 months, Mr. Ghani said in his address to the nation following morning prayers. The Taliban have no intention and willingness for peace, Mr. Ghani said. We have proven that we have the intention, the willingness and have sacrificed for peace. However, Afghan forces have complained about being left without reinforcements and supplies, often running low on food as the Taliban advanced. In many instances, Afghan troops surrendered rather than fight. Washington's watchdog monitoring U.S. spending in Afghanistan reported that troops are deeply demoralized and corruption is rampant. After their pullout, the U.S. and NATO are committed to spending $4 billion annually on Afghan forces until 2024, the majority of that money coming from Washington. India is welcome to join China-South Asia grouping. Bangladesh denies the group was meant to exclude India. A.K. Abdul Momen. Suhasini Haidar, New Delhi. India can join the China-led South Asian Initiative for COVID-19 vaccines and poverty alleviation too if it so desires, said Bangladesh Foreign Minister A.K. Abdul Momen, denying that a 6-nation grouping launched earlier this month was meant to exclude India. The creation of the China-South Asian Countries Emergency Supplies Reserve, and a Poverty Alleviation and Cooperative Development Center set up in China on July 8, the outcome of a meeting of the foreign ministers of China, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan and Sri Lanka in April, had raised eyebrows in New Delhi, as it appeared to leave out only India, Bhutan and the Maldives. In dire need of vaccines. The Chinese approached us at a time we were in dire need of vaccines, Mr. Momen told The Hindu in an interaction on the sidelines of the Connectivity Conference in Tashkent last week, explaining that India's decision to suspend vaccine exports, including to Bangladesh, who had contracted and made advance payments for 5 million doses of Covishield per month, had become a big issue in the country, particularly as many had taken the first dose of the vaccine and had no access to the second. Mr. Momen said that after Bangladesh requested vaccines from China, Foreign Minister Wang Yi decided to convene the Six-Nation China-South Asia meeting, where he suggested setting up a poverty alleviation center to deal with economic issues arising in South Asia due to COVID, an e-commerce economic cooperation forum and an emergency storage facility for vaccines. We asked, how about India? And the Chinese government said this forum is open to India and India is welcome. In fact, even at the foreign ministers' meeting, which included Pakistan, they said India would be welcome to join, Mr. Momen said, stressing that the issues involved in the forum are common to all South Asian countries battling COVID and its impact on GDPs in the region. Aggression on lack. The Ministry of External Affairs did not respond to a question on whether India had been invited to the forum or would consider joining the China-South Asia Center, now being established in the southern Chinese city of Chongqing, in the future. However, given continuing tensions over Chinese aggression at the line of actual control in Ladakh, and New Delhi's firm stand that other bilateral relations cannot move ahead without a resolution of the boundary standoff, it is understood that India would be unlikely to consider a new grouping involving China, especially one that could be seen to dilute its role in the SAARC region. The absence of India from the grouping, as well as from a series of consultations on COVID relief between the Chinese Vice Foreign Minister and different combinations of all SAARC member countries, other than India and Bhutan, led some experts to suggest this was meant to be a -India initiative. India is the only country of all 8 SAARC nations that has not requested or accepted Chinese COVID vaccines. Best day ever, Jeff Bezos blasts into space on own rocket. Mission successful, Jeff Bezos giving a thumbs up after returning from space in Texas on Tuesday. Found out. Associated Press. Van Horn. Jeff Bezos blasted into space on Tuesday on his rocket company's first flight with people on board, becoming the second billionaire in just over a week to ride his own spacecraft. The Amazon founder was accompanied by a handpicked group, his brother, an 18-year-old from the Netherlands and an 82-year-old aviation pioneer from Texas, the youngest and oldest to ever fly in space. Best day ever, Mr. Bezos said when the capsule touched down on the desert floor at the end of the 10-minute flight. New Shepard. Named after America's first astronaut, Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket soared from remote West Texas on the 52nd anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing, a date chosen by Mr. Bezos for its historical significance. He held fast to it, even as Virgin Galactic's Richard Branson pushed up his own flight from New Mexico in the race for space tourist dollars and beat him to space by 9 days. Unlike Mr. Branson's piloted rocket plane, Mr. Bezos' capsule was completely automated and required no official staff on board for the up and down flight. Blue Origin reached an altitude of about 106 kilometers, more than 16 kilometers higher than Branson's July 11 ride. Pedro Castillo declared Peru's next president. He won by a margin of 44,000 votes. Pedro Castillo. Agence France Presse. Lima. Leftist school teacher Pedro Castillo was proclaimed Peru's president-elect Monday, 6 weeks after a polarizing vote of which the results were delayed by claims of electoral fraud from his right-wing rival, Keiko Fujimori. The 51-year-old trade unionist's victory leaves Ms. Fujimori facing an imminent corruption trial. Dear compatriots, I bring here an open heart for each and every one of you, Mr. Castillo declared from the balcony after George Luis Salas, head of the JNE elections jury, announced his victory in a virtual ceremony. The JNE validated the vote count by the ONPE elections body, which had given Mr. Castillo 50.12% of the ballots cast, some 44,000 more than Ms. Fujimori, most of whose objections the jury dismissed. Vaccination is top priority in North and East Sri Lankan government says it will provide livelihood support in the Tamil majority areas. A beneficiary of a housing program in Jaffna district. File photo_Rama Meera Srinivasan, Colombo. The Sri Lankan government will give top priority to COVID-19 vaccination and livelihood support in the Tamil majority north and east of the island nation, according to an official tasked with overseeing the efforts. Nearly 60,000 people across the northern province, Jaffna, Kilinokchi, Mannar, Mullaitivu and Vavuniya, and about 74,000 people in the eastern province, Trincomalee, Batticaloa and Ampara, have received both doses of the vaccine, according to Geethanath Kasilingam, Coordinating Secretary to Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. We should be able to fully vaccinate everyone over 30 years of age very soon, said Mr. Kasilingam, who is also the resettlement facilitator for the North and East. Locals are hoping for wide vaccine coverage in the region so they can return to their jobs. There is some vaccine hesitancy in the community, according to Suresh Kumar Urshanandini, president of a Kilinokchi-based organization of women who are sole breadwinners in their families. We need credible information on the vaccines, like who should avoid them, and what symptoms to look for in case of a reaction. The government could use its network of midwives to take this message to the community effectively. The vaccination drive, however, cannot by itself turn the tide of economic distress, unless the government redoubles its efforts towards resettlement and livelihood revival, residents said. Although the pandemic has severely impacted the national economy and livelihoods across the country, families living in the north and east are worse off, as they were already struggling to put the devastating effects of a long civil war behind them. Studies have found that a quarter of those households are headed by women. Economic hardships. Survivors of the war have repeatedly blamed the former Mahinda Rajapaksa administration, 2005 to 2015, for their persisting economic hardships. While officials point to an estimated $1 billion post-war investment on infrastructure in the area, people's lives hardly show a corresponding improvement. In fact, most families in the northern and eastern districts resorted to predatory microfinance loans to survive during the last decade, getting entangled in a stifling web of debt. If housing needs in the area have increased, retrieving land remains a challenge as owners return to their former plots, held by the military until recently. After successive governments' efforts, some 3,500 families who were internally displaced remain to be resettled, data shared by an official source showed. While military-held land has been returned to the people in many areas, at least a few thousand acres of state and private land, including some 6 school buildings in Jaffna, are still with the tree forces, according to the data. We are working with all stakeholders to ensure housing needs are met swiftly, and people are provided with land, Mr. Kasilingam said. Additionally, building strong livelihoods in the agriculture and fisheries sectors is a key priority, he added. Land is being fiercely contested in the region, according to N. Vathanayahan, a former top bureaucrat, who has served as government agent, corresponds to the district collector in India, in all 4 northern districts. People's lands, including agricultural lands, in many areas have been gazetted as forest lands now. They should be regazetted and returned to the people, who are the rightful owners of those lands, he said. French president among potential spyware targets Moroccan king's number also on the list. Agence France Presse Paris. Phone numbers used by French President Emmanuel Macron and top members of his government are among the potential targets for the Pegasus spyware supplied to several governments, the NGO that leaked the list of numbers said Tuesday. If this fact is established, it's obviously very serious, a spokesman for the president's office said. Moroccan King Mohammed VI's phone is also on the list of numbers of people identified as potential targets by Morocco's intelligence services, French radio reported on Tuesday. Thank you. Economy news. FinMin seeks nod for ₹1.87 lakh crore. Expenditure bulk of cash outgo to aid COVID battle. Special correspondent New Delhi. The Finance Ministry has sought the Parliament's approval for fresh gross additional expenditure of ₹1.87 lakh crore through the first supplementary demand for grants in 2021-22, entailing a net cash outgo of about ₹23,675 crore. Most of this actual outgo is earmarked for the battle against COVID-19, with almost ₹17,000 crore allocated to the Ministry of Health, while ₹1,750 crore has been sought to compensate banks for the compound interest component of the loan moratorium granted to borrowers last year. GST dues to states. The gross expenditure of ₹1.87 lakh crore also includes the ₹1.59 lakh crore to be raised through back-to-back borrowings for paying states' GST dues. Last Thursday, the centre released ₹75,000 crore to states through such borrowings, and the balance is expected to be borrowed in the second half of the current financial year. The pending GST compensation for the period April 2020–March 2021 has been pegged at a sizable ₹81,179 crore, said ICRA chief economist Aditya Nair. The financing options for the pending dues for April 2020–January 2021 remain unclear, she added. LIC introduces Arogya Rakshak Plan. Special Correspondent Mumbai. Life Insurance Corporation of India has introduced Arogya Rakshak, a non-linked, non-participating, regular premium individual health insurance plan. This plan provides fixed benefit health insurance cover against certain specified health risks and provides timely support in case of medical emergencies and helps the insured and his family to remain financially independent in difficult times, LIC said. An individual can insure himself/herself, as principal insured, by his/her spouse, children and parents under one policy, the state-run insurer added. Zomato said to have raised $1.26 billion in IPO. Reuters Hong Kong. Food delivery startup Zomato will raise $1.26 billion by pricing its shares at ₹76 each in its initial public offering, according to two sources with direct knowledge of the matter. The sources could not be named as the information has not yet been made public. Zomato did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Zomato, backed by Ant Group, will be valued at up to $8 billion following the IPO, the first for a food delivery group in India. Pricing is set at the top of the flagged range of ₹72 to ₹76 a share at the start of the booking building process. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching this video as a podcast. Do like, share and comment. Press the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to get new notifications. Thank you. Take care and stay safe. God bless you all. Gemma Bharti. To download news and editorials in MP3, follow us on Telegram, Virtual School Official. The link is provided in the description below.